Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today is April the 1st, and we are at another exciting installment of the Housing and Real Property Subcommittee, and that is not an April Fool's joke. We have two bills on the agenda today, Senate Bill 175 and Senate Bill 896. We'll begin with Senate Bill 175, and this is the CSST bill, corrugated stainless steel tubing, of which we have heard many times before. And we do have some amendments on this bill. And I'm going to ask Ben to describe the amendments, and so we can get started here. Ben, if you could share your screen and go through SB 175, I would appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Chair Holmes. So yes, the title is Public Safety, Fuel Gas Piping Systems, and Corrugated Stainless Steel Tubing, Prohibitions and Study. There's no fiscal impact with this bill, the Senate version. As amended, the House, Chair Holmes, you amended the bill a little bit. So there are a few differences with this bill and the Senate bill as it came over here. At the bill hearing on the Senate bill, the staff was generally inclined to support the House version. I think there's been ongoing discussions with the bill sponsor, advocates, and you, Chair Holmes. So to walk the subcommittee through the main changes, the first general change is generally the substantive study provisions in the bill are conforming back to what the House version's substantive study provisions were on fuel gas piping systems, gas piping, and CSST. The other main, and just to highlight the amendment to the Senate bill, the first one is on the screen, line 7 and 8, going back to the House version, which is using non-arc resistant jacketed. That is also the case. It's kept in the existing law. The Senate version that came over here was using non-conductive jacketed, but that was changed. You can see non-conductive jacketed has been struck. That was done again after speaking with the sponsors and the advocates on the bill. And so it's just going to be in keeping with the existing terminology and the existing provision of the code in 12206 for the building materials. And then now getting into the study provision on fuel gas piping systems and CSST. The study is going to be done jointly with MDOL and the Office of the State Fire Marshal. So that's a change from the House version. The Senate version had MDOL, the House had State Fire Marshal, and this is going to be a co-lead or joint study by both of them. So both of them are undertaking the substantive study provisions again that the House had passed. So that's reflected in the Senate version now. Well, there's one little tweak to the study language here in paragraphs 4 and 5. Paragraph 4 and 5 both relate to legislative and regulatory changes. And so it was added that the regulatory and legislative considerations or analysis could include looking at 12206 of the public safety article, which is one of the provisions that is existing law in the bill. And then if enacted by this Senate Bill 175 or House Bill 222, section 19108 of the business regulation article. So that was added to just further assist with any future changes to the code or to regulations. This is, again, C is about the consultation or part of the study, and that's being done with the State Fire Prevention Commission, local government entities responsible for gas fitting inspections. And then again, this is another piece from the House bill, manufacturers of fuel gas piping systems. And then the last change is the House bill just had a final report. But because there were some concerns about fiscal impact, but because the Senate bill actually had an interim report and the Senate version doesn't have a fiscal impact, It's going to have an interim report December 1, and then a final report September 1, 2026. Yeah, and those are the amendments, Chair Holmes.
Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, I move favorable on these amendments.
Second.
May I have and there's a second. Now we're in the discussion period of these amendments. And I think Ben did a great job in discussing them so that we understand exactly what it is we're doing. Any discussions on the amendments? Seeing no discussion on the amendments, all in favor of the amendments signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition to the amendments? Scrolling through, I see no opposition. I move the bill as amended. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chair.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on SB 175 as amended? I see no hands raised. All in favor of SB 175 as amended signify by saying aye.
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 Is there any objections or any abstentions? Seeing none, SB 175 is approved as amended. If you would now, Ben, go to SB 896, then please share your screen.
Okay, thank you, Chair Holmes. 1 second. Yeah. All right. So, Senate Bill 896, let me just get my notes here. So, the title, this also had a House cross file. The members most likely recognize this one as well. Pet Policy Transparency Act. There's no fiscal impact with the Senate version. The Senate bill, there was one small amendment to this bill. And just in case the members were wondering, the House bill is going to be making a couple of changes that more closely resemble the Senate bill. So with that, this is, again, providing pet policy, landlords on the pet policy, so that prospective tenants are aware of the pet policy that's in effect before they're signing a lease, to avoid issues where, like, some of the testimony was about how tenants were having to abandon their pets or break a lease, those types of issues. So the main distinction, you don't see this in the bill because the House version had added a application provision only to landlords who operate 5 or more dwelling units. The Senate version that's before the subcommittee now doesn't have that. So this just broadly applies to landlords. The next difference is the Senate version has struck providing a link to the policy in advertisements or in information that's provided to a residential search engine. So that's not included. It's just providing a link on the property's pet policy on the website, if applicable. And that, if applicable, is the one amendment from the that was added by the House to the Senate version here, which was also done on the House version. And then there's substantive provision, though, of the bill C2 and C1II is providing a copy of the pet policy in any rental application form. That is still preserved and preserved in the bill. So and that's the amendments, Chair Holmes.
Thank you very much. I move the amendments, please. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Now we will have discussion on the amendments. Delegate Healy, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I guess my question is about if these amendments propose to take out the for the small landlords, 5 or fewer units, is there any provision, or does this require everybody to have a website now? I mean, would there be like somebody who only has like 1 or 2 units or a single house that they rent out or something like that, they would have to go and get a website just so that they could put this up there?
And that was one of the amendments that was added. The language that was added is if applicable. And it says here, provide a link to the property's pet policy on the property's website if applicable. And that if applicable term was added because, as you indicated, some small property managers or property owners do not have a website. And so the if applicable was added to cover that.
Okay, and Ben, does that legally cover that situation?
Yes, Chair Healy, or yeah, Delegate Healy, that's the yeah, that's definitely the intent of that amendment, and I think that's my understanding reading the language as Chair Holmes like advised.
And that's sufficient to give people the cover they need if they don't have a website.
That is our understanding, yes.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
Thank
Thank you.
you. And that's something that was very important to me, obviously, as well, as I'm sure you can recognize. So we have the motion and a second on the amendments. Any additional questions on the amendments? Let me scroll through. I see no additional questions on the amendments. All in favor of the amendments signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All in opposition of the amendments, raise your hand or wave your hand or something. I see no opposition to the amendment. The bill, the amendments have been approved. Move SB 896 as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on SB 896. Are there any questions? Let me scroll through here.
Delegate Baker has a question.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, Delegate Baker, yes, sir.
So this bill goes from 5 units to 1 unit.
It doesn't specify, Ben, this bill doesn't specify the number of units. In the advertising piece of the bill, it talks about advertising your pet policy, basically if you have a pet policy, if it's applicable. Ben, can you expand upon that, please?
So thank you, Chair Holmes. This is it applies to anyone who's a landlord. The landlord of any residential rental property needs to provide a link to their pet policy and provide a copy of that policy in a rental application form.
And the if applicable language, how does that apply here then?
Yep. So the if applicable, that concerns the link to the pet policy on the website.
And if there is no website,
Right.
then it is not applicable to that particular scenario.
Correct.
Thank you. And I think that addresses Delegate Baker's concern. Am I correct, Delegate Baker?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Any additional questions on SB 896? I'm going to scroll through here and I see no hands raised, nor do I see any hands waving, Delegate Ciliberti. Therefore, SB 896 as amended, all in favor of SB 896 as amended signify by saying aye.
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 Is there a second? Oh, I'm sorry. It has been moved and seconded as amended. SB 896 is now, will receive a favorable report from the subcommittee. Ladies and gentlemen, I am awaiting you on the floor.
See you later.
This meeting is now adjourned.